All right. Good morning, Dima. How are you doing?
I am doing great. What about you?
I'm doing fine. I'm trying to pick up this energy we were talking about. I think we have a good energy going into the show today, but
it got better. It got better the last 15 seconds. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We've missed you on the show.
I've missed you as well. It's been weird. It's been just weird. Can I say that? It's been strange not talking with you on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And being on vacation, which is also weird.
Yeah. Are you all rested and happy?
I'm well rested. I'm happy. I'm ready to get started. We got a good friend of ours on the show today. Let's bring our man, Eric Dexter, the Director of Business Development for Civil Solutions Consulting Group and good friend. Eric, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm good, man. I'm trying to be a little bit more pumped up than we were, just prior to a few minutes joining on, but I'm here. I'm good, man. I can't complain.
The stretching helped. I know I had a
stretching did it. Yeah, I went running last night when I got home, and I'm not naturally, or at least I always haven't done distance running. So going out and running like 3 miles is not something that I've always done, but I've been doing that a lot more since quarantine started because I didn't have gyms and I really couldn't go anywhere else. So that's the bright side about all this for me, is that I've actually been outside more, running and walking and riding my bike. So, but the older I get, the next day and the day after, or a little harder to, like, that first step out of bed, you're like, what in the hell happened to my ankle? Like, I don't remember rolling anything, So that's the tough part. But the old ticker is still ticking, so I'm good,
Eric, I got sore from vacation, man. I'm not
putting stuff in the car and taking it out, man, is tough,
Loading, unloading, that drive on the way back, switching different beds. It's a first world problem by all means.
Right.
With everything going on.
Running after 2 kids, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Keeping kids safe around a pool and then a large body of water. So
yeah. Cardio.
That's I think the vacation started when we got back. So
gotcha.
But it's good to see you. It's so good to see y'all. Dima, it's been weird not talking to you on a regular basis. It's been weird not, I was on a few web chats, but not being on Chit Chat just felt so strange to me.
And it does feel like it's been a long time, even though it's been just a week since you joined last week with Maxine.
Just a week.
But it feels like it's been a month. But
but so much has changed too in a week. And I know we're going to talk about some things, but man, so much in a week. So much in a week has changed. I think that's been the norm since this pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. Since probably a little bit before that. We got some comments though, because we got to bring that energy level higher, right? Because we were falling.
The 3 of us.
We were falling flat on like our vibe. We got to pick it up. Dima says so. But look, I don't know who this is. I wish this worked on our side where we could see on the stream who's actually commenting. But Eric Dexter, #rockstar. That's probably one of the best ways to start a show.
I'll take that, man. I can't play a lick of one instrument, but I'll take the rock star in whatever way that they are describing me as.
Well, I would describe you as a community leader, a friend. I would describe you as successful. How would you describe yourself? What do you want to talk about in terms of introducing yourself? Would you like to talk about your position? Would you like to talk about what's going on in your mind right now? What's happening? Tell us.
Well, I'm a guy that does things.
You do a lot of things. You do a lot of things.
Does a lot of things that I care about. As you mentioned earlier, I'm the Director of Business Development for Civil Solutions Consulting Group, which is a local Baton Rouge-based engineering and consulting firm. And so we work on, projects, a lot of things that most folks may not understand is what civil engineering is, but most of it is everything that's on the ground and under the ground that designs our roads and our infrastructure, utilities, sewer, water. Those are the types of projects that we work on, but also including vertical structures that you may know, such as schools or various facilities where someone's got to do that work on the ground and below ground. So that is what we focused on. And as a director of business development, that's kind of a fancy word for for a salesperson in a sense. except you know, when I came on board 5 years ago, I was like, well, you know, I got to have a better title than just sales guy. But it is actually, I do more than just sales, because business development in our industry requires so much coordination between teaming partners, between the various agencies and stakeholders, recruiting and onboarding. And we're a small business that is you know, it's basically a startup. When I came on, we're now about 7 years old, but really we're a startup when I started 5 years ago. And so we've grown the firm up from 2 and 3 employees at the time to, you know, 15, 20, you know, at one point we had about 25 employees working on a project. Wow. So we've grown tremendously. And, you know, that's my role, to try to help us continue to grow and eventually, you know, branch out outside the capital region, focus on more state related projects, going to New Orleans and Lafayette and Lake Charles and, you know, Shreveport and any of the areas that are consistently growing, but then also getting outside of Louisiana and some of our surrounding states and trying to take advantage of some of the opportunities that they have there. So that is what I do for, you know, the paying gig. But the other 60 hours of my week, I spend a lot of my time serving, man, in various capacities. You know, I sit on, actually had to, on my other screen here in my office, I had to pull up my bio, because sometimes I forget what I've signed my name onto. The day comes, you know, and I got to go to a meeting. I'm like, what hat am I wearing today? What am I having to prepare for? So that is I spend a lot of my time serving, man, on various committees and boards. But it's for me, I'm here in Baton Rouge. I'm not a native of Baton Rouge. I've been here 15 years. I'm from Alexandria originally. Went to school in Northwestern, you know, in Natchitoches, and then moved down here 15 years ago. So I knew when, you know, I was starting to see that this was going to be my home, you know, I had to get involved some way. And that really started happening about 10 years ago. Joined some organizations like Forum 35, for instance, now Forum 225. And that opened my eyes to a lot what was going on in the city. And that was really one of the moments that, you know, I started to realize there's a lot going on in Baton Rouge. And in that time, that's, you know, post-Katrina, you know, 05 to 010, there's a lot of development happening in Baton Rouge. And it was kind of exciting to be a part of it and play a leading role in certain capacities on getting Baton Rouge to where it is today. And I still think Baton Rouge is still a ball of clay, man. We've got so much opportunity here that is and a lot of untapped potential. We got a lot of talent that I think is just untapped at this point.
Yeah. I always, when I think about you, Eric, I have a feeling eventually you're going to get in politics. The mayor.
Yeah.
Telegraphing it already, man.
Yeah,
look,
that's what I see.
If I had you know, a $250 campaign donation every time someone told me that, I'd be ready to run tomorrow, because I think we'd be, you know, I think my campaign would be maxed out at this point. So I have my own.
That's incredible.
But no, as I always tell folks, when people say that, I take that as a compliment. But I said, when are you going to run is the question I always get. And I said, I'm running from politics, you know, I'm running from it. You know, I do enjoy my private life and being able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And then also serving, you know, without really having to answer to someone. You know, maybe that's the old millennial in me, or just I kind of march to the beat of my own drum at times. And so that is one of the biggest pushbacks of having to be a representative of someone that elected you, is that you really are having to listen to what they say and then make a choice or make a decision with it that's of their best interest, but also based off of what you know in your capacity. So, you know, that is kind of always a dilemma with me, is that I can do a lot. And actually, you know, I feel that I, and along with a lot of other people in the private sector, get a lot of things done that oftentimes elected officials can't get done, because they're limited in you know, representing their constituents in whatever district or you know, in any district that they may be in.
Okay. Well, maybe you'll change your mind in 5 years.
Who knows, man? A lot of things can happen over 5 years, though. A lot of things can happen over years. We've seen.
Well, think about what happened in 3 months. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, if there's one thing that is prominent in all of this, is a lack of overall leadership. And, you know, someone like you, I mean, we started out saying that you were a community leader, and you obviously have proved that. I mean, you've done so many things, and I met you in a leadership program, knew of you because of a leadership program. So, I mean, that's one of the few words that I would first associate with you every single time you were of mention, Eric. So I mean, your leadership obviously would be highly needed and sought after. So don't do too good of a job, because then they're going to want.
Yeah. You know, I
tell going to push us that much harder.
Right. Well, you know, I tell people all the time when they're joining boards or various committees, you know, I usually, if I'm on a nominating committee or I'm trying to recruit them to be on the board, I said, just be careful if you say something or you propose something and you deliver on what you propose, because now they're going to ask you to come back again and again and again, and you're not going to be paid for it monetarily. So just understand that if you do something and you follow through on it, we're going to ask you to keep coming back and doing it over and over again. That's kind of how board service works. But so, you know, I hear your point in that.
Good. So I am wondering, how are you doing with all the recent events? I keep checking your Facebook page, and I admire your post. I just recently shared one of the videos that you shared. I think it's called 13. I wrote it down. 13, which I recommend for everybody to watch. And I also saw your post about companies that are donate to small business owners. But before we talk about all of this, I wanna check on you. How are you?
You know, I'm maintaining, in a sense. You know, as I've told, you know, various people that checked in on me, you know, I'm doing my best not to be consumed by it all. It's very tough at times to do that, because, you know, you're always, and for me, it's hard for me to unplug, because so much of what I do requires me to be plugged in, and to be aware of current events and things that are happening. So that is not always a freedom that I get on a daily basis, whether it's work related or some of the community things that I'm working on. You know, it's hard for me to unplug from those events, because that's kind of what I do. But with that said, is that, you know, you're forced to face the reality hits you in the face even harder. You know, it's a reality that I've lived with, you know, for a while. If we're talking about, you know, whether it's George Floyd or Breonna Taylor or Ahmaud Arbery, or now Rashard Brooks, and the countless others, Outland Sterling, Philando Castile, goes on and on and on. This just didn't start with me 3 or 4 weeks ago. You know, this has been going on for years. And, you know, you don't have to go back on my timeline on my Facebook feed to see the things I've been posting, you know, for years now. And I think for me, some of the frustration that I initially had early on was, you know, why now? Did a man literally have to be lynched in broad daylight and narrate his own death for us to take it seriously now? And that's the problem, because I think what you hear from a lot of folks, a lot of Black folks in particular, is that could have been me, that could have been my son, that could have been my daughter. And based off my own personal experiences, I know it could have been me, because I've been in some touchy situations before that. I would have just been another guy to most people that are around. And so that stuff is heartbreaking, and it's hard to deal with, and still have to go to work and put on a face and do your job and make a living, and still try to take care of your loved ones. So, but, you know, look, I considering all things considering, I'm working, I get paid, my bills are paid. I've taken a vacation in the midst of all this, which is much needed. So, you know, I'm blessed, man. I'm very fortunate. I'm blessed, but I would not be truthful if I didn't say that, you know, it's also been a little hard mentally, because that drains me. I'm someone who needs a lot of time, alone time, to just read or listen to music and have a scotch and smoke a cigar and watch some sports, which, you know, that has been a little tough at times because of the disruption that we're experiencing right now.
Absolutely, man. I mean, it sounds like, too, it's to perform underneath those measures, and it's been all the time, right? Not just the last few weeks, but just to still be able to, you said maintaining, and the reason why I'm bringing that up is I think entrepreneurs go through this. I think there's coping mechanisms built in. I think obviously going through, you know, trauma like this, and I guess for our generation, for the first time, getting our hands into a civil rights movement all over again that started way back, you know. So it's, but to still have to put food on the table, to still have to maintain composure, be polished, be professional, give back, and still serve. That is very tough. I mean, we started this out talking about my vacation. I mean, it's tough to detach. Do you find something, a way to detach in this? What's either a tool you use, or what do you do to separate from everything?
Sure. Yeah. And I'll just, before I get to that answer that question, for me, it's the work part of it is, a big part of what I do in my job is writing proposals of projects that we're going after. And so for me to be in that creative writing space, to write proposals on how we're going to design a road or why we're putting this team together to pursue a certain project, I really have to get in like a certain space, get the right music on, and kind of like isolate myself for a while to get to that. And when you have so much of the stuff that's weighing on you, it's very, 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 very tough. So, that just having to get to that space is tough. So I can empathize with a lot of people who are having to battle with that. And I've said it before, I said it on my Facebook post. I have a benefit. I work for a company founded, and as the president is a Black man, relatively, a few years older than me, like a brother to me. And so I have a space where I can come and bring all of me to it, which is a big part of the coping mechanism of being able to cope and get through this. A lot of people do not have that. And in an era where we in our generation have been taught to be colorblind, which is also can be very troubling, because you can't have race discrimination and policies that built the current system that we're in and try to get out of them with race neutral policies. And being colorblind, you have to understand of how it got created in the first place. And so being in a company like this, a lot of people might have not understood the hurt that I felt in previous years before I got to a company like this. And I know a lot of my peers are experiencing this when they have to go back to the office. And in the corporate world, there's small businesses. I've had them message me privately, and I've had people say it publicly that, I feel that. Thank you for putting that out there, of just, expressing how you feel and how it is hard to be vulnerable in the workplace. And I know it is especially tough for Black women, because a lot of times when it comes to pay and your voice being heard, you're very low on the totem pole. And I know as a Black man as well, we have some of those, we benefit from being a man in the system, but then we also some of the downsides and the stereotypes that get put on you when you decide to be vulnerable or speak up. So that is I just wanted to kind of address that. Now, how do I focus and try to get back to some normalcy in my headspace? Exercising, as I was saying earlier, I've been doing a lot more working out outside than I've ever done probably in my adult life, whether it's running, which I'm not a long distance runner at heart, but I've been doing a lot more running. I would like to do a 5K at some point whenever we get back to actually doing races. So I'd like to be able to do that, do some of these other type of competitions that are out there. So I'm enjoying it, man. That's
You mean competitions like 22 push-ups a day for 22 days? Do you mean, is that what you mean?
I've done that. I've done
I was waiting for an end there.
I've done, I did it for 1 day. Yeah, I did it for 1 day. But I work, I try to maintain and work out. But I did do Dave's thing. I did reply. Matter of fact, I got hit up in back-to-back days from Dave and another friend of mine, Jimmy, who asked me to do that, the 22 push-ups in 22 days. I didn't make it all 22 days. I think I hit like 1 out of the 22. So, I did as much as I could.
Oh, I love it, man.
We're talking a lot about listen and learn. And I've been doing a lot of reading, a lot of watching documentaries. And in my situation, because I came from the Middle East, I did not live the history that a lot of you experienced growing up. And honestly, yesterday I was sick to my stomach all day, just by watching all of this and realizing that this is what we're living with right now is really nothing new. The messages we're hearing of Black Lives Matter is nothing new. This has been talked about for a long time. Sure. Of course, I'm happy now to see that more people are involved. You look at the protesters, people from all colors, and that is great. But it is terrifying to add this to another point in history and go back to the way things were. Sure.
And I think that the education, the listening is part of it. That's the first step. But then the learning of understanding how we got here understanding that this wasn't created 5 years ago or 10 years ago, 15 years ago, what have you. Wasn't created by one political party. This is not a left, right, whatever. You know, I saw a lot of people saying, I don't like to be political. Well, Black Lives Matter is not political. That is just humanity. I don't care where you're from. And so that is, you know, you have to go back. You have to understand of how does our school system, why does our school system look the way it looks? Why does our criminal justice system look the way it looks? Why does our economic disparities, why they are the way they are? This is something that, why are our neighborhoods segregated? Still in 2020, many of our neighborhoods are segregated. You have to go back and understanding how you got here if you want to ever undo that. You can't just start today and say, yeah, I'm for this. Well, if you're going to be for it, but then how are you going to advocate for it? You have to understand that there's legislation being passed. There are city parish council meetings that are happening. There's planning and zoning committee meetings happen. There's school board meetings happen. All these different meetings that are your tax dollars being put to use happen all the time. This is millions and millions and billions of dollars that are being put out there. And if you don't understand or have people in the room that can be a representation of the people in the community, oftentimes things get pushed through without someone at the table saying, hey, hold up, I think this may be troubling because of this one particular issue. Maybe there's something we should look at. And so you don't bring that to the table, have that understanding of, you may be repeating yourself all over and over again and not understanding, like, all this stuff that we live in is not always malicious and and consciously done. A lot of it is subconsciously done, and this is not understanding our history and how we got here in the first place. So I think that learning part is going to be critical for all of the allies that are now here with us and they believe in it. I think that's going to be critical for us to move forward.
Yeah. And I remember in my situation when I first moved to Baton Rouge, and that was 7 years ago, one of the first things I was taught was about Florida Boulevard and what happens, who lives north and who lives south of Florida Boulevard in our current world right now. It's just so crazy.
Yeah. That's I've heard from a lot of my friends, my white friends and associates who aren't from Baton Rouge, and they moved to Baton Rouge and they were working with a real estate agent or trying to find a house. And I've heard this from multiple people, so it's not just hearsay of them saying, well, you were not willing to show them anything north of Florida, maybe even government at one point, not really even willing to show them a property because they wouldn't want to live there. And that's when you start going, again, it's systemic. This is getting out of the individual and understanding this is systemic. That person was taught that by someone else, and someone else taught them that, and this is the structure that we're currently living in. This is the school. We live in a school that a parish, at least, that is, 46, 47% African American. In the city, we're 54 to 55% African American. But 85% or so of our school system are Black children. All the other white kids are going, maybe 5 to 8%. Are going to either not private school, but they're going to, a lot of them are gifted and talented magnet programs, which, I know a lot of my friends' kids, white friends' kids, go to gifted and talented programs here in a city parish. But, if you listen to certain advocates, they will say that those programs are a private school on a public dollar. And if you look at the demographics of those programs compared to the rest of the school system, they don't match. They don't match up. And so we have to understanding that we may be perpetuating an imbalance and the disparities just by sending our kids or getting our kids into their program, because we wanted our kids to have the best education as possible. And I truly understand that. But you also have to understanding that the system that you operate in. And so if you're going to be an ally, maybe there's some things that you can speak to when it comes to for the types of schools that you put your kids in. And I say that because many of my young progressive white friends and my really, really close friends don't understand that. They haven't done that research. They don't understand that the magnet programs were in the consent decree until the early 2000s, I believe, because of this, the lack of the demographic imbalance that they had that were representative in those programs. And so that is just one piece that I think we have to be mindful of. You can't say Black Lives Matter and then continue your life and everything else and not understanding where it's something that you're doing maybe subconsciously can be perpetuating the system in the first place.
Yes. And in addition, I'll mention something, Rob, and then I'll have you because it's linked to this point. In addition to everything you mentioned, Eric, one of the things I was surprised about when I moved to Baton Rouge, how people introduce themselves and they say, what high school did you go to? And this never happens anywhere else in the world, at least the place where I live. And so it's not just all the like important information you mentioned, it is also putting people socially, who you're going to interact with and who's going to be at your level or not. And that's, in my opinion, is absolutely horrible.
Sure.
Well, and so and so now I know why she's like, Rob.
You do that, Rob.
But let me tell you why I do it is because I never did that before coming into Louisiana. I'm not from here as well. And so not growing up from here, I had to kind of piece where things are and where people were. And so when sports became important to me in school, and when girls became important in school, let's be honest, come on, before Facebook, it was like, what school do you go to? Do you know my friend? So you can get the inside track on knowing who that girl was, or, you know, whatever. But then sports. And so I played a lot of different sports. So I wanted to know where people were and see if they knew this person. So originally for me, where that came from was like a pre-Facebook way of networking and piecemealing where people were, who they knew, and what my fabric of friends would be around that area. And then later it became like a rival thing, most definitely would be, but on the competitive side, you know, talking stuff about that, you know, that rival high schools, you know, we have a better, you know, we have a better band, we have better baseball, but they win football, you know. So I never really had that before like coming to New Orleans. Yeah. And then it just, I carried it in from New Orleans, no joke.
Right. It's kind of our version of, you know, how's the weather? You know, you get on these conference calls with people from all over the country. And that's usually the first thing we talk about is the, you know, obligatory how's the weather over there thing, you know, which is, I think we are so used to, what high school did you go to? That's just kind of, it is. But again, Dima, as you pointed out, you may not know what kind of box you're putting someone into when you ask the question. So I'm glad you mentioned that. It's something I got in mind for. We do it all the time.
Speaking of right before that, we were talking about EBR schools. My daughter has summer school. I'll be right back. Okay. You and Dima will continue. I'll be back in about 3.5 minutes.
See you. You'll get it.
Okay. So, Eric, one of the things you mentioned earlier, how you are lucky because the company you work for is the owner is a Black man, and you feel that you're being heard, they understand what you're experiencing. But what advice would you give to somebody who doesn't have that experience, who's in an organization that does not value diversity and they're wanting to fit in, but a lot of people, all of us, we need our income and our jobs right now, and leaving is not an option. So what tips would you give to a person like that?
Oh boy. Try to find a peer or support group. Be as close to your friends, whether they work with you or not, as possible, because I think that's needed. You need that girlfriend or that guy friend or other to go to and have those conversations. I've been in that for most of my career, was that type of environment. And so it can be very lonely at times, especially if you're not from here, as we just mentioned, how parochial we can be in Louisiana or in Baton Rouge. And so if you're not from here, that could be very, very, very lonely if you don't have an outlet. If you're not a part of some other type of extracurricular activity outside of the office, or there's, you know, whatever it may be that's your hobbies. And so I think that's important, having some type of peer support group if you cannot get it there. You know, as far as speaking up, you know, I'd be, you know, dishonest if I say, yeah, you should fight the power, run in the office and tell them what needs to be done, because quite honestly, it doesn't work like that. Maybe now, for really strange reason, people would be more willing to hear and listen to what you're saying and try to implement some of the ideas, or at least putting a diversity and inclusion committee together to work on those ideas. It may be done sincerely now, but, you know, that's not always the case, you know, and it's very, very hard to be the literal minority in a workplace, especially if you're not an executive and you're not in the decisions and the meetings before the meetings to determine where this is going to go. Is your you put a diversity and inclusion committee together, and the leaders of the company are never there. They're never in it. So when you take an idea and you bring that back to the leadership table or to a board meeting or whatever that may be, they didn't understand what went into this process of bringing these ideas to the table that you think you should implement. Some people are more willing to bring them forward, and some are not, just because it's not their world. And so that is tough. It is not easy, which is why I think that we also should be pushing and advocating for diversity and inclusion at the executive level in a lot of companies. Now, in a small business, you may not have, 10, 15 people. So company's not going to be that big, and most people are going to know each other and talk on a daily basis. But some of these larger companies, you may not ever see some of the executives. The people that are just kind of like in the office of pushing paper executives. And so, I think it's important to have, your leadership, again, look like the area and the people that you're serving. Because ultimately, it's only going to make you stronger, because now you're going to bring a different perspective to the table that you may have lacked otherwise. And that's going to help you to deliver a better product or service to the people that are around you that are likely supporting you with their dollars. So, again, there's no easy way for me to just say, hey, you just get through it and you'll be all right. No, because that is hard and it can be lonely. And I would say that if you can, look for other places that do value you in that capacity, value your whole self, and not just necessarily what you bring to the table, what type of report that you can provide, or income you can bring it to the table, but just, go to, find companies that value your whole self, which again, in Baton Rouge, we're a smaller city. You may not find that here. That's just being completely honest. Everyone can't go out and start their own business and just hey, I'm going to start my own business, because some of us are trying to, rubbing two nickels together to make $1 now. So, that may not be possible to go out and get that loan to start a brand new business and be able to support yourself and have clients already ready to go to support you as well. So it's a long answer, short, I guess, but it's not an easy answer for me to tell someone, because I've been in that and I didn't really have a way out. Some of these places I got fired from. So, they pushed me out before I could get out in a couple of places in my career,
Yeah, it is tough. So I want to go back to the beginning of our conversation. And you said you moved to Baton Rouge from Alexandria. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I was in Natchitoches going to Northwestern State. I went there for 4 years, graduated, and then moved straight to Baton Rouge. But, my home is in Alexandria. Well, it was in Alexandria at that point. Yeah. So
I know a lot of people know you, including myself, but we don't know your story. What's your story?
Oh, well, I was born a poor Black child. No, I'm joking. That's line from Church, if you remember that. If you've ever seen that movie with Steve Martin. But no, I'm from Alexandria. I was raised, this is a bigger part of my story, so I'll go through it. But, my parents were divorced when I was 8. My mom was an educator, a school teacher who highly believed in education. She graduated from Grambling State University, got her master's from Northwestern. She was a musician. She played the organ at our church, and she taught 5th graders, more hours in a week than she probably should have been at that time. And then I also watched my mom my senior year, because my parents had a divorce and my dad died when I was 16. So she really was on her own raising me and my older brother and older sister at the time. And so I found the definition of hard work and what the importance of education was. My mom even took up a part-time job at Dillard's my senior year. And this is at 53, 54 years old, doing this, still playing the organ at church. And she taught piano lessons too throughout the week. So the definition of hard work was right there in front of my face. And so I went to school at Northwestern in 2001. And then that spring semester of my freshman year, my mom passed. And so now here I am, an orphan in a sense of trying to figure out the world. I didn't have a big family anyway. I have an uncle and some family that lives here in Baton Rouge. My sister is out of state. My brother, who passed away last year, was out of state at the time. So, you talk about being lonely and depressed at times. I was really that. But I always kept in the back of my mind, what would my mom want me to do? And so I pushed through it, man. I went to school, made the grades I think I needed to make, went to summer school every summer. Except maybe my freshman year. I did my freshman year too. I went to summer school every summer, figured out how to, get Pell Grants and continue my Pell Grants and financial aid, and got 2 places on my own. and graduated in 4 years with honors, or at least over a 3.0 grade point average. And so I knew I had to get the hell out of Natchez, Louisiana, because it was just too small a place for me. With my personality and the things I like to do. Great city, by the way. I mean, not saying that I would never go back there, but it's a great city to visit. It's a great vacation spot. A lot of people have, their lake properties and things out there. Great for recreational fishing and just being on a boat and just laying out. Very relaxing. But I knew for me at the time, being a young 20-something-year-old, that was not the place that I was going to be able to start my career at because of what I wanted to do. So Baton Rouge, it was between Baton Rouge, New Orleans, and Lafayette at the time. And because I was working, eventually going to work for an insurance company, and I just chose Baton Rouge because it was kind of in the middle between that I-10 corridor between Lafayette and New Orleans that I had a lot of friends in both places, including Baton Rouge. And so I was like, all right, I'll move here to Baton Rouge. I have an uncle and aunt and some cousins here. Worst case scenario, if I need to go get a warm home cooked meal, I can go here. And I'm glad I did, because Katrina happened just a few months after that, which also, turned Southeast Louisiana upside down. And then, of course, Rita came. And, I was here in Baton Rouge. And so went from doing insurance sales to being a healthcare recruiter for a couple of years. And then I got into, the payroll industry. I worked for ADP for 3.5 years. That's when I really started to understand Baton Rouge as far as from a business perspective, because so many of the people that I know today, my dentist who I went to yesterday was one of my clients, the coffee shops. So many of the people I know became because they were either my clients or prospective clients. And I started going out to a lot of events. I joined Forum 35 at the time, got on their culture diversity committee, eventually got on the board, eventually became president. And then, the rest is history from there. So, things really, really picked up and moved fast for me around 2010, after being here 5 years. It took a while because for a while I was like, go to work, go work out, go home, maybe go to a bar every now and then. It was really stale in my life compared to what it is now. It was very stale and boring. And I, at that point, did not think Baton Rouge was going to be the final place that I was going to live. Today, that's a different story for a number of reasons. My girlfriend that I've been dating for a lot of years now is a big part of that. Hey, Rob. And then also the work that I've been doing and getting, being a part of. And so Baton Rouge is one of those places I tell people, it's like, man, you can do a lot fairly quickly if you just be willing to put yourself out there and go, because that happened for me. Understanding that I have certain, abilities, I'm not gonna be that humble and say it could happen to anyone, because there's stuff I work hard on. And I try to learn really fast and learn of people and from people. So, but it is, if you do want to get involved and engage and just play a role in developing something, Baton Rouge is a fairly easy place to get into. I've seen so many people that I know today that, I pick up a business report, I read 225 or any of the other local publications. And I remember when these things were just starting, and I'm not that old of a man, but, I remember when so many of these organizations we were having meetings for the first time. And here they are today, over $1 million in donor advised funds going their way and grants that they're receiving for a lot of the nonprofit work that they're doing. So, Baton Rouge, it can happen. If you have a passion, come forward with a plan, get in front of the right people. I wouldn't say that you can just start everything on your own. Sometimes it does take people who are already plugged in and engaged that can connect you with the other folks that may be doing some of the similar work. And then a lot can happen. So that is some of my story, man. But I would be remiss if I didn't say, and I always try to do, the importance of when I decided to show up to a Forum 35 meeting one day. And it's not a plug for them. I'm just a dues paying member at this point. But that day changed a lot for me, because going to that meeting and then showing up to a cultural diversity meeting from downtown. So right around the corner when we went to Little Village one day, from that point on, I can really put a bullet point there and say, okay, that happened. I got on the board, became president. I got on brass board. I got on this board. I got in this committee. And then, I'm looking at my resume now, and it just branched off from there. So, things can happen. You can really get involved. And I will also say this, because this is important for me personally. I got a bachelor's degree from business administration and a minor in marketing from Northwestern State University in little old Natchez, Louisiana. I didn't go to get my master's yet. I don't have a doctorate. I don't have some advanced degree. I'm not exactly a technically skilled person on a lot of things. With that said, I know what my strengths are and I know what my weaknesses are. And I always try to focus on my strengths and bring those to the table. And so that is important to me, because I know a lot of people who don't feel that they're capable of doing something. And I just say, you know what, BS, throw that out the window. You don't have to have, not knocking education, obviously, as I told my story, but that is not a prerequisite to have successful careers or have a successful life, that you have to go get all these things and get these additional letters behind your name. So that is a little bit of my story. I work in civil engineering in the engineering industry now. Never had a background in engineering. I met Kali Koran, who's president and principal at our firm, in a leadership class in class of 2015, nice. The best class, of course. And that changed everything else too. He and I met, and he had saw me speak at a Metro Council meeting on the fairness ordinance that we were trying to get passed several years ago. And he was like, man, I like that guy, man. He thinks he brought a message. And then we happen to be in the same SimSoc group. If you've been to it, the first meeting, we happen to be in the same room, same group. And again, the rest is history on a lot of these things. And I believe things happen for a reason. And it was just right place, right time. And I'm fortunate enough to be here and still doing what I'm doing today.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah.
It means a lot. And now I can understand a lot about your personality and what you're doing and what you're passionate about. Because when we have difficult backgrounds, when we have childhood that we had to deal with a lot as little kids, that gives us the muscle to really face life and continue to help. And because we all know, like the three of us, we had difficult experiences in our childhood. We have stories.
Sure.
That's what motivates us to make a difference and to help other people as well.
But I just want to add to that is, what I don't want to do is use my story as what should happen. Your parents aren't supposed to get divorced when you're 8. Your parents aren't supposed to die before you turn 19. You're not supposed to lose a brother at only 40 when he's 44 years old. You're not supposed to never meet any of your grandmothers, not grow up with most of your grandfathers around. That's not supposed to happen. So you're not supposed to get fired from multiple jobs, in a career. That is not something I would wish on my kids when I do have them, or anybody's kids, or any of us. That is not necessarily the way I would prescribe how life should be. But there were people in my life that were advocates for me and support for me that changed the trajectory in my life. And so I do want to just point that out, that's not necessarily the route I would recommend going, because that is hard and it's very lonely. I spent multiple Thanksgivings and Christmases by myself in my apartment, literally by myself as my friends went back home. And so there were a lot of lonely, depressed days that, made me understand and have the compassion that I do for people today. But I wouldn't, if I had to do it again, I wouldn't want to go back and live that. That's not anything that's anything to celebrate. It's celebration that I'm here today and doing what I'm doing. But going through that is nothing to celebrate about. And so any of you that may have, that could be you, or it could be some people that are in your life, just know that there are other people that are going around. And even though you can champion them and say, look how you turned out, that's not always a good thing. Sometimes it takes allies, again, and people that are supporters to lift you up when you can't lift yourself up anymore. And I had people around me that did that for me. I'm big. I read a lot of Malcolm Gladwell, and Outliers is a book similar to that. You think about the outliers. Well, look how these guys did that. Look how these girls did that. Well, along the way, there are always somebody that gave you a leg up. As President Obama once said, you didn't build that. Well, what I took from when he said you didn't build that was that somebody else laid the ground for you, so you didn't have to do that thing again. And I'm hoping to be able to kind of lay that ground so the next Eric that's out there doesn't have to go through all those things again, because that's not necessarily the way that you should go through life.
Wow.
Yeah, you sort of executed verbally the explanation I've always been searching for. And when you've had someone that's taken sort of where you were at a certain point and launched you a little bit higher, or elevated your presence, and changed your trajectory, it oftentimes, at least for my story, it wasn't just one person. It was a lot of people that did that over time, because I was, thick-headed and stubborn and little crazy at times. But I mean, they were definitely the most prominent ones that launched me higher, you know.
Sure.
And that made the trajectory way more escalated and efficient than it was before. But there were so many people that did that over time to get me out of where I was.
Right.
So many people. And so that is exactly why I try to be available to do the nonprofit stuff, or to help out, or to serve in the community there, or to, you know, learn more in leadership and give back. It's
Right.
to be available for that moment. That's it.
Right.
So I think I've always like tried to, when people ask, why do you give back? I think that's absolutely it. Is so I can change the trajectory of someone else at any given time, and to be available for that.
Right.
So you kind of nailed it there. And I didn't know a lot of that, buddy. I didn't know a lot about that about you, actually. So we share a lot of similarities there. And look at Dima trying to get me to cry. She's already been bossy this morning. She's already been, you know, she's back.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to do anything. It's okay. You can cry.
Crying's good, man. You know, crying is good for the soul.
That's not the first time I told you that, so it's okay.
Sure.
Crying is healthy. It's good.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I know she's trying to get me right back in the saddle with a little bit of chat.
No,
Man,
I appreciate your thoughts on that too. You know, it's you never know, and I try to remind myself of that, even when sometimes it's like, oh man, I don't want to be bothered, because naturally I'm someone I do a lot of things in the community, but I need a lot of my alone time and my own space to get my energy back. And so there's times in that moment they're like, hey, can you come do this on this Saturday? Or, you know, hey, can you talk to this person on this day? It's like, oh man, this is the part I've been looking forward to all week. How am I going to make it through next week? You know, I'm always thinking that in my head, if I don't recharge now, how am I going to be good next week? But I always try to remember that there was somebody who probably was that to me was that to me in my life. And I need to make sure I'm that person, because literally there are one sentence or one word or a couple words that someone said to me over time that I still remember today. They probably don't even remember. But, you know, I remember my assistant dean saying things to me in his office that I could just walk in his office. Northwestern, small enough university where you walk in his office, sit on the couch and have a conversation with the assistant dean for the College of Business. And I asked him about life and what I should do after college. And, you know, he just tell you, or my professors did, or people that are mentors now, may literally say one thing to you that sticks with you. And so I always try to refocus and remind myself of that it's not about your idea of you're the conqueror. You're not always the hero. They're the hero. You know, you're the person that is, you know, building the tool for them. You know, that you're the butler. What's his name? Is it Alfred? And you're that, you know, or you're the Morgan Freeman character. I'm always forgetting his names. I'm not super comic books, but you're that person. You know, you're not the hero. They are. So it's something you have to remind yourself, and I have to continuously remind myself of that.
Love that.
So now it's our time to be heroes for other people that are going through a difficult time. And imagine like all the changes that we're living in right now, how much all of us, we need to step up and we need to contribute and help. And this is the time. Sure.
Well, I'll tell you. So one question for you all, and that I was thinking about this last night. I was running. I always think about 100 things while I'm running. I wish, you know, if I could develop an app, somebody can help me out with this. And it'd be kind of hard to transcribe it while I'm running, because I'm probably it probably would not sound very nice. But as I'm running or I'm working out, I have 100, you know, the endorphins start flowing, and I'm thinking about all these ideas. I'd like to be able to get these ideas out instead of getting back to the house. It's like, okay, I just thought about a whole, like 15 minutes of world domination, and now I forgot all of it. I need to be able to get this out while I'm running, but sidebar conversation there. But I was thinking about this last night when I was running. I said, so question for you all. So I know that over the last few weeks, you've had, whether it be me or Jada or Maxine, even Chelsea Lorano that you had in there, you've had a lot of either women or Black folks that you've profiled or you've interviewed. Was that a conscious decision on your part?
It was. So yes, okay.
Well, it's a second part question. It's a two-part question.
Yeah. Okay.
If it was a conscious decision, did you put out a statement about it saying that this is what you were going to do? No.
No.
So, and I would like you to go back and respond, but I just want to say this is that you can do things in your life without actually having to put a statement out saying that you're going to do it. You just did it. Now you and Rob, I'm assuming you'll explain it to me. But in my head, as I'm running, I know they probably had a conversation. This is going to be a conscious effort that we're going to do. And so you did it without a statement needing to be put out. I knew that. You didn't even have to tell me that. But I knew it by watching it. And so as I read a lot of these publications or people that are putting statements out and say, you can just be active and do the things that you say you're going to do, like today. And people will realize that without you saying we're going to do it. Now you're a two-person, or I don't know how many people you have around you, but basically two-person operation here. So it's a lighter lift than maybe a large business or a large company in your actual personal businesses, but it was still noticed. And it means something. It means something. It meant something to me, not just because I'm here. It meant something when I was watching Jada and Maxine and Chelsea and others that you've invited to be on there. So other people realized that and took that notice. I did. So sorry, Dima, to cut you off, but I wanted to say that. But yeah, if you can walk me through that decision or those conversations, because I think the why and the conversation you had is important.
Yes.
But Dima, before you get started too, a lot of this was.
Sorry, Dima.
Typical
males in a meeting. We just keep talking over the woman. We'll get back to you, Dima, but Rob, next, please. You know.
Okay, Rob, go, Rob, go. I'll talk to you later.
I gotta get her used to the flow. I always interrupt everybody, so I gotta get her back in this chit chat flow. No, I'm joking, but it's I'm glad you asked that question, and we started this whole show because of wow, we need to connect with our community, with what's going on, with what people are feeling, with what kind of conversations can we have to uplift and to just sort of not just help rebound, but just reconnect and just help people find those resources too. So and so with this, it was almost natural for us. Not that the pandemic's any less important than when it was, and what created this whole show and all the amazing experiences that have become of it, but it's almost natural for us to just be present with what is going on and always find a way to learn from it.
Sure.
Personally and professionally, but if others can take a piece of that I think is what this program or this little platform is about, and then to uplift others by showing what they're doing, what they've done. Right. And you got people on this comment thread right here already that are saying how amazing this is, and thank you for sharing your personal story. And that's all of that, and that connection is what for me is why it's a natural way to just start talking about something else that's also equally as uncomfortable, but that we might have not dealt with the pandemic before, and racism might not have been in our face as much publicly or on the media. But man, it's all. If that's where we need to go and shift along the way, for me, that's just a natural fit for wherever we're going with this show. Yeah. But Dima,
will you allow me to talk now?
Did you have? I love you so much.
Dima. Take us on out.
So diversity is so important to both of us, and I've been so impressed to see how when we're thinking about the guests we want to bring, how our friends and our community, Rob and I, is so diverse. And if you look at the beginning of our show, we've had women, we've had men, we've had white, black, all kinds of people. But now what you're going to realize is we're trying to learn. So I can go and read a book about the history, but when I hear your story, when I hear the story of my friend Rashad Jackson, who was sharing about him being stopped by a police and his experience, that's going to change me at a cellular level, and this is what I want. So that's why we're inviting you. We invite more and more amazing people to join us, so we can learn from you. We can learn from your experience, and hopefully we can be part of the voice, part of the change that's going on.
Sure. Well, I appreciate that. I just wanted to let you know I noticed it and I appreciated it. And I guess part of it, which is not necessarily a good thing of why I noticed and appreciate it, because a lot of these platforms do not do that. Whether you go to a conference and the whole panel is, especially if it's in tech or engineering for sure, a majority white men and very few black women in particular. And definitely, few black males, and I'm saying black because I'm a black male perspective. That's what I'm speaking of. But my Latino brothers and sisters, Indian, and Asian as well. And so I think we have the folks in this community that are really talented. We have some really, really talented people here, and they need to be profiled as well. And I will put this challenge to publications that are out there to understand that like you have a talent base and. Quite frankly, just stop being lazy. Stop calling me every single time and emailing me when you need a quote unquote young black male face in the magazine. That is, and I've had to tell people that. It's like, I think you should probably get someone else because there are other people doing things around this community besides me. If we want the profile to be lifted up of what this great city is, we're recruiting businesses to this region all the time. Well, people that, especially millennials and now younger, they appreciate the diversity. They're coming, especially if they're coming from larger urban areas or outside of the country. This is something that they probably are accustomed to. And you come to Baton Rouge, we're so segregated, and you pick up a business publication and not one person in there looks like them or their neighbor. Well, how do you think that feels? You can say that it's a welcoming place. You can say it's the Deep South and we're so welcoming and we're friendly to everybody. But again, I go back to actions.
Yeah.
If I do not see that, then why am I going to believe you? Because you said it, but it doesn't necessarily reflect that. And so that is the larger point, I think, of why I'm asking my question, why I asked that question. And I think, you said it, but that's the importance of it. Like, you just don't have to create some huge, large, you don't have to do it like a whole program. Like, just do it. We have too many otherwise brilliant people that are leading some of our companies and our businesses around here to take something like this and call it hard and complex and be the reason why they can't get something done. I refuse to believe this because we're too brilliant otherwise, and we're too resilient in this region otherwise to take something like this when it comes to diversity and inclusion to say it's too hard and complex to accomplish, because I know that ain't true.
Yes, I agree.
Love that.
So the message here is take action, and all of us.
Yeah, in your own way, in your own circle of influence, in your sphere, in your own way, and don't ever think that anything you're doing is too small. We're as I also have to remind myself all the time, and I actually said this in a conversation last night. We're just a cog in the wheel. We're not the wheel. Mm-hmm. We are a blip in the long timeline of civilization and humanity. We're here for a short while and then we're gone again. Don't understand that this world is going to, it didn't begin when you got here. It's not going to end when you got here, but you have a moment that you can be effective in what you do. So, you're just a cog in the wheel. And that is hard for some of us, as important we think we are. We're not we're playing a role in civilization and our society to bring us forward, and so hopefully by the time it's time for us to leave, that we've done something that brings about progress. And
I want to speak about the size and like the when and where that happens too, because a lot of those monumental conversations, those pivotal moments, happened in small settings for me. I don't know for you, but it happened in those small settings that made my perspective shift and move and expand. And so, and just like you said before, just that person who might have said that one sentence that stuck with you in that moment, for them, it might not even have been that big a deal. They might have been dealing with some other stress or something, but they were there in that moment, and what they said was powerful.
Sure.
So, and just like you said, I mean, that role, I got to go back to a lot of what was said didn't have to be in these huge platforms. A lot of what can change can happen in small doses, small but powerful and mighty teams that or people that just have an awareness and an appreciation of something that can be better.
Yeah, it's not a PR. It's not an opportunity for PR. Yes.
No.
So I have a client meeting that just started. So let me jump. But you guys talking, Aaron, I think so highly of you. I'm so fortunate to have you as a friend. Thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good one. And look, I appreciate it, brother. Have a great one. Stay safe and keep serving and enjoy. I'm sure you to have about another 3 or 4 Zoom calls after.
yeah. On to the next one.
Amen, buddy. Have a great one, my friend. Take it easy.
All
Thanks
right,
for being on our show.
See y'all later.
Bye, buddy.
Bye.